Hello again there folks, Lone Adventurer here. Thank you very much for stumbling your way upon my little channel here and joining me for my end of year video. So somehow we're at the end of 2024. It's been a really good year for the channel. The subscriber numbers have grown quite considerably. I have posted a lot of playthroughs, as you might have noticed. Definitely more playthroughs than I ever have done over the course of the previous years that I've been doing this. So I guess this is year 3 of the channel, something like that. Let me just have a quick tally up. So I make it 29 games that I've done playthroughs on the channel, and that includes a couple of the games that you can see in front of you, but we'll get to why I've put these out in a second. So 29 games. And given the fact that I do this in my spare time, and I find it quite challenging to find the time to learn the games, play the games a few times, then record the videos, then edit the videos and upload the videos and respond to comments and all of that, it's all quite time consuming. And every now and then I question whether it's a valuable use of my time, but I do enjoy doing it quite a bit, and I love the fact that it forces me to become familiar with such a wide range of fascinating games, and I enjoy interacting with you lot in the comments as well. There's a lot of benefits, but all that to say that there's been a lot of games covered, and it's been a good year as a result. And the game plan for this video is to have a little bit of a think about various aspects of the channel and what I've been trying to do, but also to take a look at some games. We're going to be doing a little bit of a think about games I have not yet played. We're going to look back at the list I did at the end of last year of games I have not yet played, most of which I still haven't played. So we've got Starship Scavengers here to represent that list of games I said I was going to play but then I didn't. And this is a game that is on my not yet played that I'd like to play soon list. We're going to have a look at some of the games that I received this year, some of which I covered, some of which I didn't, that I find quite aesthetically pleasing. One of the reasons why I like playing and collecting solo games is they come in such an interesting array of formats and styles, and they give people the opportunity to express themselves creatively and artistically. So this is my opportunity just to highlight some of the games that I like purely from aesthetic point of view, and Crows of Coppershell Bay is on the table right now to represent that little list. And then we're going to do some channel highlights, some things that I covered on the channel this year that were particularly interesting or particularly well received, and Korg is on the table to represent that little list. And at the end of all that, I'm going to do a little digital giveaway as well. So if you get bored of my waffling and you want to just jump straight to see what that's going to be and how you can put yourself in the running for that, you can skip ahead. There will be timestamps in the description. So with all that said, a couple of things to mention at the top. I've mentioned the digital giveaway. I'm also going to mention my Substack. I started a Substack a few months ago, a newsletter. I've been enjoying doing it, but it's another thing, and I do question whether I should have taken on another thing. But if you want to check that out, if you want to subscribe, there'll be a link in the description down below. There will also be links to any playthroughs of any games that I mention that I've done. Possibly a couple of links through to Drive-Thru RPG for any of the bits and pieces that I show. Yeah, there'll be lots of links. It won't be exhaustive, but I'll include lots of links. And the other thing I want to mention before we get started is the possibility of doing an AMA. I don't know whether you lot are interested in seeing me waffling on and answering your questions, but I thought I'd throw it out there as a possibility. I did mention it in a channel post a few days ago, and I did get a couple of interesting questions, but not really enough to justify a segment in this video. If you do want to ask me some questions, I might do a separate video answering your various questions. Throw them in the comments down below if you have any questions, and maybe I'll do that if there's enough interest. All that said, I'm going to move these aside and we're going to bring in the first pile of games that we're going to talk about. Alright, so this first pile of stuff is the 5 games not yet played that I mentioned in the end of 2023 video. So these are the games that I wanted to play, taken out of the really quite substantial backlog of games that I have here that I would like to get to the channel. These are the ones I said I wanted to play the most, so I thought we'd do a quick review of them. First up, we've got Doom Pilgrim. This is a unique game experience that you can get from the Game Crafter or from itch.io if you want to do print and play or play it digitally. It's from Warclaw Games. Warclaw is a great independent game designer, someone who is worth supporting, who produces this fantastic grimdark art that adorns all of the cards in Doom Pilgrim. Yeah, I'm not going to linger on that one too long because I've covered it on the channel a lot. There'll be a link to one of the playthroughs in the description down below. But yeah, that's one I actually managed to cover, so I said I was going to cover it, and I did. Next up, we have Starship Scavengers, and this is a game from Stephen Hart at Grinning Frog Games, and it's a solo space exploration and scavenging game, essentially. So we have a core rulebook, and we have the first 2 assignments. In this game, you play through certain assignments. So we have the HMS Brutus, where you can go and do some scavenging, and we have a moon crash site, where you can go and do some scavenging. And I read the rules quite extensively for this, but I just didn't get round to playing it. I think sometimes if I don't, pick up a pencil and immediately get into it, then I sort of lose momentum, and that's kind of what happened with Starship Scavengers. So since this has come out, since I backed this Kickstarter, I think there's been a couple more. So there's a bunch more assignments and a bunch more enemies that you have to face. And I think this is an interesting looking game. I just haven't gotten around to covering it. So Starship Scavengers, as you will see in a second, I haven't included it on my really want to play list for 2025, but I do still want to play it, and I still would love to bring it to the channel. I think that it is a game worth checking out, and yeah, I'd like to cover it. Next up, we have Morkborg, or Merkborg, depending upon the accuracy of your pronunciation. And this is a game that needs no introduction. It is a game that has quite a lot of infrastructure put in place by a variety of people around it to support solo play. And playing a true RPG that's intended for group play solo is something that I haven't really done yet, and I haven't gotten around to this year. And I've been making excuses as to why that is. But the reality is, it's probably time. But I said I was going to play it in 2024, and I didn't. And the penultimate thing that was on the list for 2024 is Broken Shores. And this is from Black Oath Entertainment, and it's a game where you are drifting around a post-apocalyptic, drowned world in a boat of some kind, and having various encounters in the designer Alex T's very imaginative world that he has created. And I did play this a little bit myself. I just didn't bring it to the channel. It was superseded by another one of Alex's games that I will be mentioning later on in the video. One that I sensed was going to get a lot of interest and traction in the community, so I chose to cover that instead. But Broken Shores is a fascinating little game. All of Alex's games are interesting, and over the course of this year I think he's released like 2 more games, both of which look great and are solo first or very solo friendly, and you could probably quite easily form a YouTube channel just around playthroughs of Alex's games. They're that interesting and that numerous. But yeah, didn't get Broken Shores to the channel much as I would have liked to. And the last thing I said I was going to cover last year or this year is the Destiny Quest books. And this is the first one, The Legion of Shadow, from Michael J. Ward. These are a choose-your-own adventure series, but it's a series that I've heard is quite interesting from a mechanical standpoint. Introduces some video gamey elements like save points, I think. And Michael is a UK-based designer, and these are, you know, quite chunky, intriguing-looking books. Like they're a normal sort of novel size, but we've got like almost 1,000 entries in this one alone. We've got some intriguing looking maps in the centre. So I think these are probably more accessible than other choose your own adventure type books such as Fabled Lands. I just didn't get around to it. You can't cover everything. And I did start playing last week The Seeker of Valen Wreath. I'm going to try and bring this to the channel soon. My plan is to get into it, learn how the combat works, and then bring you all in for just one video partway through my adventure so you can see how it plays. And then, you know, who knows, maybe I'll get to Destiny Quest after that. So that was my games not yet played from last year that I did or didn't manage to play. We're going to look at a new list now. How many on this list? It's 5 again. So 5 games that I want to play on the channel this year. And the first one is once again Morkborg, because I am determined to get this to the channel. I've got all sorts of interesting resources for the game now, and I think it's just time. I think I need to spend some time playing it independently off camera so I can get into a sort of a rhythm with it a little bit. I am waiting for one more zine to come through that I want to utilise in the playthroughs. Something that I backed on Kickstarter earlier this year. But yeah, Morkborg, hold me to it. I want to get it to the channel this year. Next up, we've got Kal Arath. This is a solo first, or almost a pure solo RPG. So I'm not sure I've played anything quite like this on the channel before either, in that it is a fairly pure RPG experience. The majority of the things that I play put in place more structures to support you than this does. This leans quite heavily on your imagination, I think. Probably the closest things that I've come to playing this are like Single Sheet Adventure and Harper's Quest 2, stuff like that. So Kal Arath is a game from an independent game designer called Castle Grief. Really passionate game designer who has, you know, made this game happen. And I'm always impressed by people who can sort of create, you know, fully playable systems like this. So this contains everything you need really to play the game. All the mechanics that you need. You could drop in other systems if you have other things you are familiar with and you're comfortable doing stuff like that. But essentially this contains all of the systems that you need, all of the tables that you need to roll on. And it also comes with essentially a fully realised world, the world of Kal Arath. A swords and sandals sort of world, but with quite fantastical elements, like, I mean, some kind of dinosaur on the front here. So it's kind of like Conan, I think, but quite brutal and bloody. And I've seen Chocolips do a playthrough or a couple of playthroughs of this now, and I would recommend checking those out. If you just type Kal Arath playthrough into YouTube, you will probably find your way to Chocolypse's playthroughs of this game. And I think probably it's a very accessible thing. You can roll up a character using this book. You can then roll up a quest for that character. You can head out into the world, use the mechanics for overland exploration, and just crack on with it. And then when you're ready, there's new supplements. The Valley of the Black Ziggurat adds some new mechanics, I believe, and an extra area that is more deadly that you can go into when you're of a higher level. And Lords of the Pit, I think, adds in pit fighting, but also sort of a different way to play the game as a character who is a pit fighter, I think. So yeah, that's Calarath. I really would like to get that to the channel this year. It is on the list. Next up is Little Town, and I think either this one or the next one is probably what you will see next on the channel, or soonest from this list, because believe it or not, there's games that I'm working on playthroughs right now that aren't on this list. Little Town is from Gustavo Coelho, who is the designer of Caves and Catacombs, which I have done a video of, and it is a game that alludes to and is an homage to Twin Peaks, which I've never watched, but I find it quite intriguing nonetheless. You play like an investigator, I think, who is going to a mysterious town and trying to solve a crime in the town and get to the bottom of certain mysteries and things like that. It is a solo RPG, but it's one of those ones that provides you with plenty of structure, but also encourages you to do a bit more independent role-playing and a little bit of creativity. And you can see here we've got an oracle for yes-no questions and how to interpret the answers and how that can feed into the story that you are creating. It's a cool looking one, and I know Daniel from the Dungeon Dive is a fan of this game. It's going to be on the channel this year. And the final thing in this list of new games that I want to get to the channel is 4 Against Darkness. Now I realise that I've had 4 Against Darkness on the channel before, but it's been a couple of years, and specifically what I want to get to the channel are these dungeon decks. I've got a couple made up already, but the majority of my decks are sitting patiently in a folder waiting to be constructed by me before I can bring them to the channel. We've got the Tomb Raiser deck, which I think might be one of the more recent ones, and each of these decks provide a unique location with unique mechanics and monsters. I have heard that they are one of the more enjoyable ways to experience 4 Against Darkness, so it would be good to get them to you. So yeah, that's all the Tomb Raiser deck. Then we've got the Curse of Castle Ravenstein. The backs of these are very cool. What else have we got? Looking through quickly, we've got the Lamentations of the Marsh Hag. We've got the Roads of Peril. These are so great, and as you can see, I've got a lot to make. We've got the Silent Mill. I've been meaning to get to 4 Against Darkness again for quite some time. It's such a popular game, and there's so much stuff for it. I think there are probably people out there who do solo gaming and more or less all they play is 4 Against Darkness. People get very, very deep into this game, and if you want to dedicate the time, there are the resources out there to allow you to have really quite a substantial, deep gaming experience. But there you go, that is 4 Against Darkness, the location card decks, I guess you would call them. And finally, from this list, we've got Exclusion Zone Botanist. This is from Exeunt Press, and it was kindly sent to me by the designer of the game. And it is a game when you are going into an exclusion zone, a mysterious part of the planet that is exhibiting strange qualities, and it's been cordoned off as a result. This is a concept that is not unfamiliar to the Lone Adventurer channel, since I've covered Into the Zone and Escape the Zone from Headcheese Productions, which toys with a similar concept. But in this game you play a botanist, so you are going in and you are making notes about the plants that you discover and drawing them and imagining strange plants that have been affected by the strange qualities of this zone that you've gone into. So that's Exclusion Zone Botanist, and that brings our list of games that I want to cover on the channel to a close. Next up we have got a short list of beautiful things. So games that I find aesthetically pleasing and where the aesthetics significantly enhance my enjoyment of the game, or would potentially enhance my enjoyment of the game if I got round to playing them. So we're going to start this list with Crows of Coppershell Bay. This is a little game from Paul Stapleton, who is the designer at Bedsit Games. Paul is the designer of Pauper's Ladder, which I have played on the channel. I uploaded a video of this game only a few days ago, so I will include a link up in the corner of the screen right about now. And this is a little tin game, and it is a delightful one. It is super pleasing to look at. We're not going to look at most of these components. I think we can probably just look at these main cards here, these chunky cards, and you can see immediately how Paul's distinctive, cozy artwork makes this game immediately very pleasant to look at. So in this game you play someone who is having to acquire gems in order to pay off some mafia-style crows, and you can do that in a variety of ways. So these are the locations around the town that you can go to. So at the Burrow Glade, for example, you can go foraging, or you can chill out and recover some energy or health. And then when you're ready, you can go out on quests. So for example, you can go and find Mr. Boydell, and you have a little instruction card and then a map that you move around. It's just such a pleasing little package. I've really fallen in love with this little game. I'm almost certainly going to be playing it over Christmas. When I'm visiting people, I think I'm probably going to tuck this in my bag, and then if I'm left to my own devices at any point, I will secretly go and play a game of the Crows of Coppershell Bay. I'm super excited to see what Paul comes out with in the future. In addition to supporting Pauper's Ladder and producing new content for that, I've got a whole bunch of Pauper's Ladder content I haven't used yet. I'm pretty sure Paul said he's working on a second Tin Tail game, and expectations are high, Paul, based on this one. So no pressure. That's my first beautiful thing. Next up, we've got Cartographer, Atlas Edition from Brandon Lee. This is a solo role-playing game of map making and discovery. The degree to which this sounds right up my alley can't really be overestimated. I still haven't had a chance to flick through this, but I mean, you can see why it's on this list. It's just a very beautifully produced game. We have a ribbon to mark your space, and it's a map drawing game. You know, you're exploring and you are revealing a world as you go, and there are game mechanics around that, and we've got loads of tables to inform your journeys through the world and what you discover in the world. So we've got some town prompts here. If you draw a red 3, because this is a game that uses a deck of cards, an enormous statue looms over the buildings in this town. Why was it built? What does it depict? So as someone who spends quite a lot of time drawing maps, this is definitely one that appeals to me, and it's just a lovely little package, and I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to show it off. So thank you, Brandon, for sending me this book to cover on the channel, and yeah, fingers crossed, 2025 I will actually show it to you in a playthrough video. Next up in my beautiful things list, we've got Korg, Scars of Silvos. This is the latest game from Caleb Engelk, who is Dungeon Havoc on the internet. And Caleb produces these very minimalist, small, affordable games, and I found all of them to be very visually pleasing and beautiful to look at and enjoyable to have on the table. But Caleb's really stepped that up for this game, and I just think it's absolutely stunning. In addition to being very usable, it is full of Caleb's own art, and around the titles we have little incidental bits of art and representations of the various settlements that you can go to. And also each page has its own sort of visual style. So Oak Run is very woody and rickety and thrown together. And then the Orblum Isle has got more of a jungly feel to it, like a lost world with statues hidden in the jungle and wild creatures. It's such a pleasure to have this book on the table and to play through it. I really want to get to this a little bit more off camera as well. I haven't played it half as much as I would like. It's still on Kickstarter, folks, and it's very affordable. If you're going to back anything, if you're going to treat yourself to anything over this festive period, I think it should be Korg, Scars of Silvos. And even if you don't get it, it will be available on dungeonhavoc.com, and he sends them pretty much anywhere internationally with no additional cost for postage. Yep, check it out. Absolutely stunningly beautiful. Support Caleb so that we see more games like this in the future. And the final thing on the list of beautiful things is this box set of Notorious, the solo sci-fi game that I covered on the channel back in 2023. There was a new Kickstarter for the game, for an expansion to the game, and it included this lovely, lovely box in which to keep the game. So I didn't resist on that occasion. So that is the original Notorious, and the fact that it's wire-bound makes it very usable at the table. It's hard to keep wire-bound things on a bookcase, so it's nice to have a box to put them in. And this is the new game. Oh, look, I forgot that was even in there. I've got some prints. Look at those. Look at those. Aren't they lovely? I'll tell you who the artist is in a minute, because I can't remember off the top of my head. So let's have a quick look at the new book as well. So I should have said from the top that the game is designed by a chap called Jason Price, and the interior art is done by Torben Bokemeyer. And as you can see, the new one pleasingly matches the original book. And the reason why I haven't really brought this to the channel is because, as far as I can make out, this book mainly provides more of the same. I was kind of hoping that it would expand upon the mechanics and do some interesting, different other stuff. What I was really most hoping for was that it would just add more depth to the existing exploration tables. Yeah, things like the destination table there and the destination events. Those are all really awesome. And I was kind of hoping it would build on those. I guess we've got some new destination events here, so you can roll on one or the other for a bit more variety. So I'm being a bit picky. But yeah, the reason why I haven't brought it to the channel is that it's more of the same. But I couldn't resist having the second book, given how visually appealing I find them. I'm trying to find one of the splash pages. There you go. We've got some of the character types there that you can play as. There is an expanded trilogy mode or something like that, where you play a series of games and they link together, but I don't really have the time to be playing 3 games of a game like this. But I do love this isometric science fiction art that we've got in here. It's so colourful and sort of reminds me of like a Where's Wally, like Where's Waldo in America, where there's loads of little details going on, and every time you look you see something new. So yeah, what a lovely book, and I'm very, very glad to have it, and I hope to play it soon. So next up, we've got channel highlights, things that I covered on the channel that brought me a degree of pleasure or that were well received by you, the viewers. And there is really too much to pick from here, quite frankly. I've narrowed it down to 5, but there's plenty on the list could just as easily have been dropped in. There's Tin Helm from Grey Gnome Games, that came out this year, and that's a really enjoyable little game. There's Dark Fort. Believe it or not, given how many Dark Fort style games I have now played, this year was the first time that I played the original Dark Fort, so I covered that this year. Caves and Catacombs was a game I covered this year. A Mini Rogue. Yeah, so many cool games, but these are the ones I've got it narrowed down to. Now this is Die in a Dungeon from Roland Kuntz, and this is a game that hit Kickstarter this year. I think it is an interesting game, mechanically different to anything else that I've come across, and it's adorned with Roland's very distinctive, almost impressionistic, cut out, blocky artwork. Maybe if we find some monsters, might be a good thing to show. So there you go. Sort of very reminiscent of the chap who did Hellboy, Mike Mignola. But it gives it a very distinctive look, and it plays in a very interesting and unusual way. And Roland is another one that I just think is worth supporting as a community. Very creative guy, very determined to create his own game system and produce something unique. And it's just going to be exciting to see where he takes this system and what he does with it. It uses these decks of dungeon cards, which Roland has also created. These were created first, so these are the retail copies of the Dungenerator decks, and this is a sort of a preview prototype of Die in a Dungeon. And Die in a Dungeon uses these cards in the game, so you need to get yourself at least one deck of Dungenerator cards and then this game as well. So it was a real pleasure to speak to Roland this year, to have him go through the game and very patiently teach me how it works, and then to receive this and have the opportunity to cover it on the channel and contribute to the success of the Kickstarter. That was a lot of fun, and that's why it is on the list. The Kickstarter is over now, but hopefully it will be available physically for people to purchase in the same way that the Dungenerator decks currently are. But yeah, watch this space. It's a good game and worth keeping an eye out for. Next up, we've got the Korg games, and this is a super simple game system. We've got Korg and Korg Slayer, which is an expansion to it, and as you can see, they come on these little credit cards, and it's just such an appealing idea that a game can come in such a compact package. And you can imagine that if you wanted to play out and about in the world, all you would need is a dice or two, nothing more than that, and a scrap of paper to make a note on. And it's just a sort of a classic dungeon crawl where you're taking a character into a location, attempting to defeat some enemies, healing, purchasing items, and repeating and seeing how far you can get. So this is from the same designer as Korg Scars of Silvos. So I believe you can get this on Dungeon Havoc's website or Ko-fi account. He just pops it in an envelope. You don't have to pay any additional cost for postage. So this was just a really cool little discovery this year, and it was well received by people on the channel who were equally enchanted by the idea of a game on a credit card. So that is Korg. So next up we have Single Sheet Adventure, and this is the brainchild of Perplexing Ruins, who has created games such as Fallen and a new game this year where you play a gnome. I can't quite remember what that one's called, but I think this was a game born out of Perplexing Ruins' desire to have a super simple system that he could use to play solo games himself, and so he started to gradually build it, and this is where we ended up. You've got a area for your character there, a little hex crawl area, and then you've got loads of little tables that you can roll to generate quests, to generate travel encounters, to generate the terrain as you're going. We've got some NPC tables down the side, some monster tables, some character traits, some settlement traits, a little place where you can list your locations and associated NPCs. And then there's a separate sheet here which I never got round to using, which is when you zoom in on a specific location to have a dungeon crawl of sorts. And again, you've got themes, discoveries, you've got a system for generating the dungeon, and it's all on one sheet, or two sheets, and it's super simple to get into. I played this on the channel this year, and it was nice to play something a bit more freeform, but that gives you the support if you're less confident with doing solo role-playing. Pretty much everything you need is here, and you can bring as much creativity to it as you want. Perplexing Ruins pulled this version that you see here shortly after I recorded the video, but has since uploaded a new version which is a lot more consistent in terms of the mechanics. I think the new version works with Whitebox, the derivative update of original Dungeons and Dragons rules. Whitebox is a game that you can get very cheaply, and so if you invest in that, you are able to play this single sheet adventure. I think there might be a system agnostic version as well. I'm not entirely sure, but I enjoyed covering this game this year. It was nice to see how enthusiastic people were about this system in the comments on the video, and I'm quite hopeful that I will bring the updated version of it to the channel in 2025. Fingers crossed. Next up, we've got Cur Nathalis Into the Midnight Throne, and this is the game that I mentioned earlier from Black Oath Entertainment, and it's a dungeon crawling game essentially, where you're going into a location and you're having various adventures, but it is a particularly meaty one. So if you've looked at games like 4 Against Darkness or D100 Dungeon, or indeed many of the games that I cover on this channel, and you thought, I want that, but I just want more. I want more depth, something more involved where you're rolling more dice to do more different things, more stuff to track, more ways to make your character unique and interesting. This may well be the game for you. You have the structure of going into a single location, fighting enemies, improving your character, but you have so much more in terms of ideas. So just giving you a super quick flick through, these are the masteries that you use to make your character distinctive. And each mastery is very creative and interesting and affects the game in different ways. So you can be a tracker, you can be a stormbrand, a ritualist, a mindbinder, an iron caller, a hexmancer. So what's an iron caller? As an iron caller, you channel the potent power of icon caller, sorry. As an icon caller, you channel the potent power of icons to unleash a myriad of effects and weave formidable spells. And each one comes with different tiers that you can attain to improve your skills. There's loads of those, absolutely loads. Then we've got some rules, some conditions, quite meaty rules for exploration, and then we've got a fantastic array of tables Some of the tables are purely to enhance your experience, give you a sense of place, and they don't have any mechanical effect. So for example, room description here, if you were to roll a 14, and this is on a D100 table, by the way, so quite a lot of variety. If you were to roll a 14, the room would be filled with foul, withered plants and skeletal trees that twist and reach for sunlight that will never touch them. And then other tables, such as the events table, which again is a D100, gives you unique events that might happen. The room is covered in thick mud and you immediately sink down to your knees. You must make an athletics check to cross it. Each time you fail, you gain 1 exhaustion. So you can see the game is quite brutal, and that is reflected in, we've got some personal goals. Yeah, the brutality is reflected in the enemies, which can be quite challenging, and there are loads of them. You can see how meaty this book is. And then you've got the overseers. Each of the dungeon locations will be overseen by one of these terrifying beasts. Each one has a unique effect on the dungeon and has a table of actions, as all the monsters do. So when you are fighting them, they can do different unexpected things. Yeah, this game has enjoyed real success this year, and with good reason. It is chunky, it has complexity, but it's accessible, and it's got a bright future ahead of it. It's already got a number of supplements, a really healthy community around it. I was glad to cover it this year. I'd like to get back to it at some point, but there you go. That's Kernathalis Into the Midnight Throne. Check out my playthroughs if you haven't seen them already. There will be links down in the description below. What is next? Well, next up we have Marching Order, a game from Crumbling Keep Games. This is a solo game with a sense of humour. You are controlling a group of rogues who have to go into various locations in order to complete quests. And in this box here, we've got the main rules. We've got the Mud and Blood edition book of dungeon delves, of quests that you can go on. And in this one, we have 4: the Decaying Manse, the Den of the Goblin Lord, the Catacombs of Rotbottom, and the Crypt of Sigrid von Shadowhammer. And this is a game that's full of imaginative and grungy, filthy, nasty enemies and NPCs and experiences. And it's a little bit like a choose-your-own-adventure style game. You're going into a location and you're moving through a series of rooms and having a kind of a pre-programmed experience. So it doesn't place a lot of pressure on the player to come up with ideas. Everything is here in the book for you. So if you like old choose-your-own-adventure style books, but you want something a bit more gamified, then this might be the one for you. It does rely on some cards because your marching order is important. You'll lay out the cards representing your party and the cards representing your enemies, and who can attack who will be based upon the weapons that the characters and the enemies are using and the order that they are in. So that's an interesting aspect that this game really leans into, that sort of sets it apart from a lot of other stuff. These here are the quick and dirty games. They are super quick little delves. So we've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. I've only played a couple of those as well. And this is a game that was on Kickstarter this year. This is the old edition. The new edition has loads more new stuff in, has been fully updated. The rules have been tightened up. New delves have been added. And it comes in a really, really lovely new box as well. I think it comes with standees of the different characters and enemies. So you can have your little line of characters and enemies represented by standees. Crumbling Keep is a great little independent company, just a couple of guys. And so this is another one that I think is worth us supporting as a community. If you like the look of it, keep an eye out for that new edition, because no doubt it will be available at retail after it has been delivered to the Kickstarter backers at some point in 2025. It's another one that brought new people to the channel. People who love Marching Order really love it, so it was a pleasure to cover. So that's it for the channel highlights. I'm going to move this to one side. The last thing I want to do is mention this little giveaway that I want to do, so stick around for that. So I should have said that the final highlight of the year for me has been that the Lone Adventurer channel has encouraged me and to a certain degree enabled me to make my own games. So this year I released 2 games. One is a family-friendly roll and write game called Village Emporium, and the other game is a quick and deadly solo game called New York Zombies. Now I say the channel enabled me to make these games. I suppose I could have made the games without the channel, but as the year has gone on, and I think late in 2023 as well possibly, I released some game design videos, and I'm very much the sort of person who is more likely to follow through on things if I make the fact that I am working on them public. The people who watched the game design videos were very encouraging. I enjoyed reading their comments, and in fact many of the comments did influence the way the designs went, and a number of viewers of the channel also came forward to help with playtesting of these games, and neither of them would have got to the state they are currently in, and I'm quite proud of where these games currently are without those playtesters. And so that's why my giveaway this year is going to be in part digital copies of these games. But not only digital copies of these games, but also digital copies of some games from friend of the channel, Headcheese Productions. If you've been watching the channel for any length of time, you'll be familiar with the games from Headcheese. They include Into the Zone, Escape the Zone, Luchador Hero, Sandworm. I think that might be it in terms of games I've covered on the channel, but I've spoken to Martin and suggested that I might give away a couple of his games as well. So that's the plan really. I'm going to have a little bundle of games: Village Emporium, New York Zombies, a couple of games from Headcheese Productions. And to keep things simple, I think what I'm going to do is consider everybody who comments on this video to have been entered into this little giveaway. So if you were going to comment anyway, just go ahead and comment. If you're not sure what to comment, then let me know what your solo game highlight of the year has been. Or if you want to stroke my ego a little bit, what playthrough on the channel you have enjoyed most over the last year. But that's it, I think, for 2024. It's been a fantastic year. I hope you have had a good year as well. I'm looking forward to 2025 and all of the gaming opportunities that it is going to bring. If you've made it this far in the video, you are part of the valuable few dedicated viewers who actually watch the videos in their entirety. Thanks especially to you. I do appreciate your support. I do appreciate you watching my videos consistently over the years. I'm getting to the point now where I can say that. So thanks very much. And I hope to see you very soon in 2025 for more playthroughs and more solo gaming good times. Catch you in the next one, folks. Bye for now.